Hello everyone, today I'm introducing you to a Thai drama that has just been released on the internet called Driving into the Heart of the Matter. The story centers around a manipulative young driver and a gentle doctor. What kind of love will spark between the two? Let's find out. The main character, Choi, is a professional doctor dedicated to saving lives. At the moment, he is gently counseling his patients to get plenty of rest. However, the patient across the room stated that he had work to do and finished with a yawn. Choi yawned along with him as he heard the words with deep empathy. He looked more fatigued than the patient. As soon as the patient left, Choi Saturday paralyzed on the table. He has been working for 38 hours straight without a break. It's not really Choi's duty day, but because a co-worker is sick, the kind-hearted Choi has to fill in for him. At the end of the workday, Choi was finally able to catch his breath. However, when he pulled out his cell phone, he found thousands of unread messages, all from his sister May, hoping he'd come home for a visit at the end of the month. After a tough call, Choi is about to take a break when he runs into his co-worker Tina, who gushes that she has a new crush on him. But Choi is not interested. Tina ends up with a hangover and a bad case of the jerks. This play seems to have played out several times. However, Tina is convinced that Hans, her target this time, must be the perfect man. Although she wanted to show Choi the pictures, she would have to do it another time because she didn't have her cell phone with her. After dropping off Tina, the elevator door opens and he unexpectedly meets his colleague Bert. For a split second, Choi showed a shy expression as the four eyes met. There was an ambiguous atmosphere in the air, and it seemed that the relationship between these two was not simple. Bert then suddenly mentions that today is the 10th day, and the implication is a bit of a mystery. It all goes back 5 years. Choi was a college student at the time and was facing a crisis of being late for finals, even though the exam was very important to him. But the doctor's sense of duty makes Choi resolutely choose to save lives. Just then, Bert descends like an angel. He reassures Choi that he will take the test and he will rescue the older woman. Seeing this, Choi instantly takes a liking to Bert. Afterward, he told Tina about it. Unexpectedly, Tina immediately mansplained Bert's information. Such a gentle and handsome object of desire, of course, cannot be let go. At Tina's urging, Choi prepares elaborate gifts and wants to confess his love. I didn't expect to find out that Bert was already taken. And just like that, Choi's first love was nipped in the bud. He was devastated and decided to keep the crush to himself. It wasn't until 5 years later that Choi was called by Bert in the hallway, just after his orientation welcome party. The moment he locked eyes, that long-lost heartbeat returned to Choi's heart. Bert said he was glad to be reunited with Choi. As co-workers, they should see each other often in the future. Sure enough, over the next few days, the two often bumped into each other in various corners of the hospital. Bert even made a special delivery of dessert to Choi. The move makes Tina sicker, and he thinks Bert must be courting Choi, but Choi doesn't see it that way. Just as the two are arguing, Bert pops up. He graciously admits his quest and says outright that he wants to talk to Choi. Immediately afterward, the two Saturday in a cafe. Faced with Bert's advances, Choi has a surreal feeling and even some low self-esteem. Bert then pulls out 10 letters and he tells Choi to open one a day. Wait until the 10th letter is open before responding to him. Back that night, Choi opened the first letter. Inside it was written, "It's me who really likes you, and I'm glad to meet you again." Back in time, Bert asks Choi to meet him at 7:30 tonight, and he's still waiting for Choi's answer. The scene shifts and Mick, the main attacker, comes out. Mick is a motorcycle teenager. At this point, he was driving an elderly aunt customer down the road in the wind, scaring her old sister-in-law into screaming. Upon arriving at his destination, Mick takes off his mask and reveals a handsome face. At this moment, the old sister-in-law in the back seat's legs were soft with fear, and she could barely stand up. Just as Mick gets up to take his next order, he realizes there is something wrong with the car. He then pushed the motorcycle to a rest stop, and after some inspection realized that the conveyor belt had broken. An aside, Brother Joe asks why he doesn't get a new car, but Mick says he can afford it. The brothers next to him look puzzled. Mick obviously has many part-time jobs. How can he have no money? It turns out that Mick not only has to help his mom pay back the money, he also has to cover his girlfriend Rose's tuition. He spent all the money he made, but then the question arises, shouldn't the parents be responsible for the tuition? How come Mick still has to pay for Hannah's schooling? See, in this, Mick explains that Rose's family is in financial difficulty. The two of them agreed that Rose would be responsible for studying, and he would be responsible for earning money to support the family. It just so happens that today is Rose's birthday and Mick is thinking about what to get her. He sought advice from his brothers, but they were clueless as well. Just then, Rose came over. As soon as they meet, she complains to Mick about the water and power outages in the apartment, obviously very unhappy with the way things are. Mick is very heartbroken for his girlfriend, but can only promise to move to a better place when he has the money. While waiting for the two to leave, the brothers start betting on when the two of them will break up. I can only say that brother Joe has seen too much with these eyes. He's betting that the two will split in less than 3 months. On the other side, Mick dropped Rose off at school and noticed that Rose's backpack was torn and old and was heartbroken. He slipped her another crumpled roll of money, and Rose's first reaction was to look around and see that no one had noticed her before she put it away. Rose hadn't taken more than a few steps when Mick stopped her again and sweetly said happy birthday to her. The scene shifts and Tina is taking an order at a coffee shop. The new clerk couldn't make the coffee because the order was so complicated. Well, it didn't take long for Young, the store manager, to return to the register. Just as Tina was looking down at her cell phone, Young watched her surreptitiously as he skillfully completed the order. After getting her coffee, Tina took a deep breath. For her, being able to smell the coffee was bliss. It's only after Tina leaves that Young says he's happy to see Tina too. Who was on the sidelines, immediately came over to gossip. No wonder Young doesn't complain a word about that complicated coffee, so he has a crush on Tina. On the other side, Tony, a medical school intern, stayed up late last night to watch the game. He ended up being late for a clinical lab class, and he was given a very stern lecture by Ben, his senior. Ben then asked Tony to tell us about Bet 6. Tony was prepared and had a case ready. I didn't realize the case happened to be written by Ben. It was also too embarrassing for him to be caught plagiarizing by his master. Tony was defiant after class, in the hallway, exaggeratedly mimicking what Ben just did in passing, spitting on his disguise. Unexpectedly, that's when Ben came up behind them, and his best friend immediately winked and reminded Tony. But Tony was too involved to notice at all, until Ben couldn't listen any longer and interrupted him with a voice. Looking at the other party's icy gaze, Tony then panicked a bit. After all, Ben still has to write his final review. It seems that this happy couple is the sub-conspirator of the drama. The scene shifts. Mick looked at the new bag and solemnly put it in a gift box with a bow. The cake was then carefully kindled. That's the surprise he had in store for Rose. However, Mick waited until it was dark. Rose did not come home, and the message sent to the other side did not return. Well, it wasn't long before Rose's figure finally appeared downstairs. Seeing this, Mick immediately turned off the lights and carried the cake behind the wall. He waited for Rose to enter before he walked out singing his birthday song. I didn't expect Rose's expression to be heavy instead of happy. She also had a brand new designer bag on her back at some point. Seeing this, Mick realized a hint of something wrong. Back on Troy's side, at the moment he was at the restaurant as promised. Bert has been waiting for a long time, and the ambiguity is unmistakable. Bert talks about love, while asking Troy if he read the letter all the way through. Troy instantly recalled the joy of opening the letter. The encounter with Bert also flashed through his mind in a flash. While Troy on one side has a love interest, Mick on the other side is facing a breakup. It turns out that Rose has suffered through her current misery, and all she wants for her birthday is to break up with Mick. At the fancy restaurant, Bert gently takes Troy's hand and confesses his love for him again. He wants Troy to be with him. Mick inquired incredulously from the dilapidated rental house. He's having trouble accepting the fact that he's going to break up. With that, Troy happily agrees to Bert's advances and officially has a love affair. And once again, Rose asks for a breakup and turns away without a second thought. Same time and space. One planning for the future, one planning to leave. Some are happy and some are sad. Troy's love has just begun and Mick's is over, but the end may be for a new beginning. The next day, the well-informed brother Joe immediately came to ask for the bet. That's when everyone realized Mick had broken up. Mick then comes over to work as usual, and a few people immediately square off, caring about Mick's condition in the process. In contrast, Mick is nothing out of the ordinary, and instead, everyone looks less normal. In order to take care of his lost brother, since he heartily gave up his old sister-in-law customer to him. Frightened, his old sister-in-law blushes, and a distraught Mick rampages down the road. He also knocked his old sister-in-law's knees out in several places. Just then, a familiar voice sends Mick into cardiac arrest. That's how fate works. Rose, who just broke up with him yesterday, is now in her car making out with the limo guy. Mick is furious and goes up to the limo guy and calls him out and fights him. Seeing that she couldn't stop Mick, Rose slapped him straight across the face. He breaks down and yells out, hoping Mick will leave her alone and let her find a good man. With that, she left with the limo guy, leaving Mick alone and still frozen in place. By the end of the night, Mick was still having trouble letting go. Just as he was shedding tears for love, a gentle voice suddenly appeared beside his ear. Yes, this man is Troy who wants a cab. Seeing the look on Mick's face, Troy frowned. He hesitantly asked the other man if he needed help. The two just stared at each other, the neon lights flashing on the street corner, and it was a fated meeting.